Hi, in this video, we'll be talking about the use of elevation layers in our drawings. And it's going to be a little bit different than our discussion with layers when it came to the plan. And the major difference is that in plan, we set up our layers so that they are related to the objects that we were drawing. For instance, if we were drawing a door, the door itself would be on a layer called A dash plan dash door. If we were drawing furniture, it would be on a layer called A plan dash furniture. And regardless of the piece of furniture, it will be on the furniture layer. There might be instances where you have multiple furniture layers. If you wanted to differentiate or separate out certain pieces of furniture, um, for instance, furniture that may be existing versus furniture that is potentially new. You might have a layer called A plan dash furniture existing, A plan furniture dash new. But essentially, furniture is furniture, and it will be on a layer related to what the object is, right? Walls would be on a wall layer, windows would be on a window layer. Um, and that's how our plans are oriented in terms of organized based on our layers. Now with elevations, elevations are a little bit different in that for elevations, we don't necessarily care what we are drawing in that what we're drawing doesn't necessarily have to be on a layer relative to what the object is. So for instance, if we were drawing a piece of furniture in elevation, we are not putting that piece of furniture that we're drawing in elevation on a furniture layer. We are drawing it on a layer that represents how we want the line weight of that object to be displayed and to be printed. So if, for instance, if I have a piece of furniture, a chair or something, let me see if I have a plan here. So let's say, um, and this is a little bit of a, this is a really small drawing. So there's, things are fairly close to each other. So let's say, for instance, I'm drawing an elevation of this room, right? Let's say I'm drawing this elevation right here with the two windows, the couch and the plants in front, a coffee table and another couch, right? Notice how this couch, if I was standing here, right? If I was standing right here, this couch and this coffee table is actually closer to me than this couch and the wall, right? So if we were to draw draw this elevation with these couches on the same layer, these couches would be printed and displayed as if they were at the same line weight. Okay. Now, if we're looking at this drawing, we can see that this couch is further away than this couch. Now, with elevations, we draw things a little bit different in that the line weights that we're using is a function not of what the object is, but where its location is relative to where we are standing. So how far something away from us will determine the line weight. So if something is further away from us, we will draw it on a layer that will give us a line weight that is lighter. If we are drawing an object that is closer to us, we will be drawing it on a layer that has a line weight that is darker. And that lightness and darkness will tell us in the drawing how far something is away from us. And that helps us understand the depth of our drawing, right? So imagine you're standing outside and you're standing on the street, you're looking down the block. The things that are closest to you, you will see more detail, right? It'll be more clear. The things that are further away, right? If you're looking down the street that you're able to see like 3 or 4 blocks away, the things that are the furthest from you, you won't be able to see in much detail. And in fact, they might actually be a little bit muted, right? They might be a little bit um, cloudy, if you will. Like they're not clear. The details you certainly won't be able to see. Um, And that is basically the same idea, right? The things that are closest to you will have more detail, but will also be more clearer, which means it will be having a darker line weight than the things that are further away from you. Things that are further away from you will be lighter and may have less detail, right? Things that you are cutting through, like let's say a wall, will still be the darkest line weights, similar to the plan, but certainly the objects that you see in its entirety will be based on its line weight, okay? And the distance. And if you look at our standard elevation layers, which are here in the layer line weights drawing, you will see elevations layers. AELEV for elevation, O1, O2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And you will see a line drawn on that layer with its corresponding color and its corresponding line weight. So as these colors and line weights, you can see the smaller the number, 0, 1, the thinner the line weight, 0.005. 0, 2, it's 0.008. 03, 0.01. 04, 0.014. As the number increases, the line weights also increase. And also the colors, right? As much as possible, the colors tend to be a little bit brighter or uh, uh, brighter on the screen as the line weight goes up, right? So the thinnest line is blue, which, it's to some may seem very dark, similar to the black background. And the heaviest line weight, 07, which is 0.028, is white, which is a fairly bright color in terms of contrast with the background, right? Maybe not so much in terms of vibrancy, but certainly contrast to the background, which is typically black. Okay, so if I was drawing a piece of furniture that had two pieces of furniture in my drawing, and one was really far away, I would draw that on this layer. If I had the same piece of furniture that was much closer to me, I might draw that in a line weight of like 0.014. If I cut through a wall, right, or cut through an object, I would be drawing that with the heaviest line weight to make sure that that's clear that I'm cutting through it. But again, it's all based on distance from where you're looking at, right? How clear you need to show that object. And again, having nothing to do with the object. You will have a chair on this layer, elevation 01. You can have a table on this. You can have a door on this layer. You can have a window on this layer. It all depends on how far away it is and the distance that you're looking at that object. And again, you can have a chair, two chairs, the same exact chair. They're just placed in a different orientation or different distance in the space, and they will be on two different layers. We also have layers called elevation pattern 1 and pattern 2. These are fairly thin, light line weight layers, 0.001, right? Even finer than the elevation 01 layer, but they are also screened. So not only are they a thin layer, they're also screened. So if you have a color that is 50% screened, that means 50% of it is basically invisible, right? Or it's a screen. It's a grayscale, even though it will print black, but because it is a screened, 50% of that line will show through, right? So it will be even a lighter line. 75 will be 75% of that line will show through, but it's the same line weight. These are good layers to use for things like floor patterns. If you have a floor pattern for a bathroom and you don't want the grid to be so dark and so vibrant and so heavy in terms of line weight, you could put it on a screened layer and it will print it virtually like a very light gray line. And depending on the level of screen, 50 or 75, it will be even lighter. Things that are in detail, for instance, if I'm drawing a trim, there's no trim in this drawing, but sometimes around the windows there is trim, right? I might draw some of the details of the trim on one of those layers. The outline of the trim may be on a light layer, like 01, but on the trim details, like the little fluting, maybe I might put that on a screen layer, right? So if I take one of these drawings, these elevations that I've already drawn, although very simple, right? We can look at some of the line weights, right? So if let's say this portion of the building is the closest, this is the second closest, and this is the furthest away. So what I would do is I would break up this drawing so that those portions of this plan, which is closest, will be the darkest. Okay, so like these windows, right? I can put those on a layer like ELEV, let's say 3, right? Uh, this is also on that same distance from me, and I will put that on the same layer, ELEV3. This part of the roof line, certainly, but then if you notice, it jogs back here if it follows the wall, right? So that means this portion should be on a different layer. So what I could do is take this line and I could break it. I mean, a couple of things I could do. I could just grab this line and just make it shorter, right? And then I'll just fill in the rest of this with 2 other line segments. The other thing I could do is I could use a command called break. If I select this object, right, I could break it there and then it breaks it and just, just complete that out. And then take this and use match properties, select this and match it to that, right? Now this, right, same thing, same idea. This time I'm just gonna drag this over here and then complete this line by drawing another line like that, okay? Now this line and this line are in this plane. So I will put that on a layer, let's say 2, slightly lighter. This door will be on that same layer because it's in the same plane, right? And this window, this side of the wall, that will be on the next lightest, which would be 01, right? Same thing with this one, 01, okay? So now I know it looks, the multiple colors here, but if I were to print this, you would see that these lines that's closest to me will print darker. This will be slightly lighter, and this will be slightly lighter, okay? So now let's go back to this window for a second. So I know I put this on the same layer as this, and that's fine. But if this window had trim, let's say it's 4-inch trim around the perimeter, right? Right, and let's fillet this so that it looks clean, right? And let's say for some reason this trim had a lot of detail. There's a lot of lines in there. So let's offset this 1 inch, right? Like all the way around. I'm not sure what the trim actually looks like, but I'm just trying to demonstrate if there was a lot of detail here, right? Yep. Right, and let's fillet this all so it's nice and clean. Extra line in there, so let's get rid of that. And let's trim, fillet this as well. Okay, so now that might seem like it's a reasonable thing to do, right? Because all this information is close to you. Now, and you would think that they would be on the same layer, and you would be correct in thinking that. However, what I want everyone to do is when you're printing this, make sure you observe the line weights, because when you have too many lines close together and they're on a line, a layer that will print dark, these lines together will end up showing as if it's one big solid black line going across this window. And that will just look like a big blob, a big blur, right? So in cases like this, what I might do is actually take some of these lines like that and this and put those onto a lighter layer, let's say 0.01, right? So you might think, well, you told us to put everything based on the distance you are from it. In this case, because there's a sort of crowding of these lines, right? If you put it on a layer that's too dark, it will just look like one big thick line, right? Like all of these lines will start to bleed together, and it'll make your drawing very it won't look very clear. So by putting this in on a lighter line weight and a lighter layer, what that does is it allows the detail to show through, but because there's sort of a a uh, uh, a crowding of the lines by itself, it's already going to start to pop off the page. It's going to make the line weights much bolder just because there's a lot of lines there, right? So putting it on a very light line, a layer will allow you to see the details, but also allow the line weights to show through. And I might leave this here as a slightly darker layer just because I want to emphasize the opening of my window, right? So that rule of, the layer and distance from where you are, right? Things that are closer will be on a darker layer, will work like, 75% of the time, 80% of the time. However, there's instances where you're showing a lot of detail where you might want to put the detail on a lighter line, just so it doesn't look as blurry or the lines bleeding through to one another. Okay, so that's definitely something to consider. So again, just to recap, the layers for elevations are different than plans, and the methodology behind it and the reasoning behind it is a little bit different, right? Plans, objects go on the layers that refer to the object itself. Elevations, objects will be drawn on layers based on its line weight, not on the object itself. So all these objects that you are drawing in elevation, be it a window, be it a piece of furniture, be it a piece of cabinet, a wall, a door, will be on a elevation layer, not a plan layer. Okay. And so that way your drawings will look clear. They will print with the proper line weights, and you'll be able to see the elevation in terms of what objects are closer to you and what objects are further from you. Okay. So I hope you found that useful and hope you can use that alongside with the other videos of UCS and projecting a plan around uh, the plan that you're drawing, projecting the elevations around the plan, and hope you find this useful. Thank you.